Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. So, we are just going to give everyone just a few minutes to come into the room. Um hopefully everyone is doing well and off to a really great start. And make sure y'all let me know think you should be able to hear me, but it may be a little lag. All right, so hey y'all. All right, so hey, RLTDT podcast. Hey, Rhaegar Targaryen. So, people are going to slowly start coming into the room. It's going to take a few minutes for the notifications to come out. While we're doing that, let me go ahead and take the time to shout out my patrons. Thank y'all so much for supporting my content and making these Hey Out Tuesdays possible. A special thank you to my VIP patrons. Ray, right over there, RLTDT podcast. Y'all make sure y'all give him a follow. Okay, so Ray, and Daniel, thank y'all so much for being VIP patrons. Also, I have those cute little Hey Y'all mugs in my description box below, as well as all of that merch that you can grab. Okay, so hey Southeast Dusty, hey Mel. Hey, Kingdom Jewel. Hey, everybody coming into the room. So, we're just going to go ahead and get started because we have a couple of things to talk about tonight. One thing that I wanted to mention is that you have two members of Congress. I don't even think I'm like very familiar with either of these Congress members, but you have Congress members that sent a letter, and I'll let y'all take a look real quick so y'all can kind of see what I'm talking about. Don't think the censorship, this is the point I'm trying to make. Don't think the censorship conversation is disappearing just because people aren't talking about it this week or may not be talking about it as much. It is still very much well alive. So much so, what am I trying to show? So much so that they're even trying to take it even one step further than just they're trying to take it even one step further than just social media. They are now reaching out to networks to say, hey, like, this network, our country's public discourse is plagued by misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories, and lies. This phenomenon undergirds the radicalization of seditious individuals who committed acts of insurrection on January 6th, and it contributes to a growing distrust of public health measures necessary to crush the pandemic. So this goes on to talking about AT&T roles in this, Uverse, DirecTV, AT&T TV. Okay, they wrote a letter to like Jeff Bezos over there at Amazon. Okay, y'all. So they're taking it now even beyond just, oh, we don't want these people saying this on social media. They're literally taking it to the networks now, the cable networks. They think that we cannot think for ourselves. We cannot be left to our own devices. We consistently need these paternal figures to decipher all of the information that we're getting. And they'll always start with the most fringe group, or the group that has a frenzy around them. It'll always start like that until it's at your front door, until it's in your neighborhood. This is how they do. I mean, all of the propaganda. I've talked about this. Literally, this plays on different levels, from even going into like gun control. We've talked about that. They'll present it one way, like, oh, we're coming for the school shooters, you know? And then when you actually go look at the data and the people that are be affected by this, it's like, that's not what y'all said. Same thing with this censorship thing, right? I remember you had all these progressives like laughing and talking their little noise as Trump and all these other media platforms were being removed from like Twitter and these other things. And then right after January 6th, I saw all these progressive commentators talking about they're banning my channel, they're demonetizing me, they're this and they're that. I'm like, you think? They're always gonna point at the other guys. So, in this to take it, to take it a step further, like, and I think they called out like certain people or maybe certain networks, but my thing is, all of these networks lie. It's just so much deception and misinformation going on. How could you even open your mouth or try to point a finger at just one person or one group? And so, in some regards, it's beyond time for, these media agencies to be held responsible. But my thing is and has always been, if we're going to hold people accountable, we're going to be doing it across the board. It's not going to be this, pick and choose. This is the boogeyman right now. So this is the person we're going to censorship. This is the person. How does it go? Like, something for me, none for thee. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Whatever. I don't think I got the saying right. But just something to be mindful. And I think that in some ways, because actually Trump, hate him or love him, was one of the main people calling out, or I should say, really brought light to this whole censorship issue and just the potential there for how it could affect us. Even just kind of like his impact on Twitter, as much as I used to talk about like a lot of his tweets just getting on my nerves, but I'm like, that brought a lot of attention to, when the fact checkers came into play, and then these different rules for different people, and then to see it come full circle and start impacting a lot of people. If y'all remember, even a couple of weeks ago, I did content on, it was like the Socialist Young People of America, like this group or something, and these different agencies that were working like on social justice issues, and all of them were being banned. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how that whole thing works. And in fact, the real crazy part about it is that now that Biden is in office, those would even more so be the people that they would ban. The Bernie Bros, the socialists, the communists, the Fight for 15 people, the progressives, anybody that's notable, that's gonna, especially if they know you kind of have a voice, or you kind of have the ear of like, younger people, or people that would typically be maybe like a Joe Biden and a Kamala Harris, a stan. It's like, no, we can't have you getting in these people's heads. So you definitely got to get it cut off. And we've even seen that going into how Black Lives Matter has been handled lately. As you can see, it's kind of been a little bit hush hush. I talked about, I think this was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. I talked about, I just forgot what I talked about. Anyway, something in regards to Black Lives Matter, and how over time, it's kind of, with the National Black Lives Matter organization, who, when they release their financials, they're like, we don't really want to focus on this whole police brutality thing anymore. Like, at least not all the time. We may do a little bit of that, but now we want to focus on like joy and liberation and, stuff like that. And right along with that, I need y'all to look at this. If you do not follow me um on Instagram, you should at RhondaMary Viz, because I already posted this over there. But y'all, this came out today. I believe this is kind of like a big deal, and nobody's really talking about it. So this is over here at this is over here on Twitter. Y'all should be able to hear that. Make sure to let me know if y'all can.
Greetings. I'm Tori Russell, Ferguson frontline organizer, and on behalf of many activists in the St. Louis area, I'm joined with Mike Brown Sr., the father of Mike Brown Jr. Today, we hold Black Lives Matter accountable. The movement that is catapulted into the limelight has forgotten about Ferguson and the freedom fighters. Freedom fighters like King Lee Seals, Edward Crawford, and Danye Jones have literally given their lives to the struggle, but rarely spoken about, and families are not taken care of. Brother Ali, Joshua Williams, and many other political prisoners from the Ferguson movement are incarcerated or have been, and still has received no assistance from Black Lives Matter. What kind of movement are we building where we're saying Black Lives Matter, but the freedom fighters and the families are being left behind? Where is our restitution? Where is our organizing? Where is our building of a movement? We have groups like the Lost Voices and the Freedom Fighters here, and thousands of other youth activists in their 20s and 30s have been out in the streets protesting for months and months and years for years. Still forgotten. We're asking that Black Lives Matter leadership funds $20 million to Ferguson organizers, organizations, and community foundations to do the work.
All right, so y'all hear that? This is Mike Brown Sr. This is Mike Brown's father from Ferguson, right? Along with a Ferguson activist here who are saying on camera, we want $20 million. And this is not viral. People are not talking about this. I think this is kind of a big deal. First of all, the fact that Ferguson, right, was literally the Black Lives Matter global network was built off the back of what happened there in Ferguson with the Mike Brown case. Not only that, to come so deeply off 2020 with all of the protesting and the rioting and the, everything else that we saw, and Black Lives Matter just totally being a big deal, the amount of money they brought in. Y'all, everybody is like, where's the money? This is Mike Brown's dad saying, we've had boots on the ground. We've worked. We've done all these local things, and there's been no transparency. We haven't been compensated for these things. We haven't had anything to show for it. Where's our money? I don't understand why this story is not much bigger than it is, and why it's important for me to talk about this and expose this story is because I really just need people to be loosened from the grips of what is known as the Black Lives Matter National Global Network. They have swindled, bamboozled, used so many people have come out, and now they're being ignored. And it's sickening to me that you could spend all 2020 putting this group on a pedestal, but now it's like when this truth is coming out about the no transparency, about the where the heck is the money, about the finances, or they're just coming out about that, and even some of their biggest donors they're refusing to name. That's problematic. And it needs to be exposed. It was already the this belief that that money is probably missing anyway. Most of it was shoveled into the Democratic Party. I don't know how fair that is, or I don't even know if people realize that their donations are going right back into the system of the same people that they've said has oppressed them thus far. That's the craziest part about it. Imagine giving your money to what you believe to be a grassroots organization that's going to do all these great things, and they're fighting for the people, and at the same time they're shoveling it into the same system that is the symbol of the oppression that everybody's been talking about this entire time. So if that's not a slap in the face to people, and if people don't need to know this, then I just don't know what the heck. And I do understand that there are people that have genuine concerns about police brutality, have genuine concerns about social justice, and I do believe those things to absolutely be okay. However, what is not okay when you have elitist, you have corporations, you have nefarious actors that are using people's emotions to propagandize, certain situations, or to push their agendas forward, or to push certain messaging, or to block out others, right? To censor others. It's like, oh, we don't want y'all, don't look over here, don't pay attention to what we doing, look over there. So it's just, I just have to talk about these things because I just want people to be loosened from the grip of these users. They're users, their own freaking members. The dad of the person that helped even start or created this energy is coming out like, nah, something not adding up, something's not right. Darren Seals tried to warn us. Y'all don't even pay homage to the real boots on the ground, like y'all heard them say in that video, and I've talked about before. A lot of those guys that were like originally in Ferguson are like in jail. So what does that say when the people that were actually from that community, about that community, are sitting in prison while you have the top people at the global network taking lavish trips, living in mansions in Atlanta, Georgia? Well, I'll just say Georgia, and all these other things. So unfortunate, so unfortunate. So my question is, what I've been wondering is this information coming out, both, where's the money, and oh well, we want to kind of take this whole Black Lives Matter thing a different direction. I'm wondering, is this kind of like the beginning of an end type thing? Like, it can make, think about this, y'all. This is what I've been thinking. I don't think this is a stretch, right? But think about all of the politicians that have supported Black Lives Matter. Think about even Elizabeth Warren with y'all remember the little toy blocks she had behind her, and like some type of speech she was making, and it was like BLM and like the little preschool blocks. But like I was talking about earlier on with the censorship, it's certain things that this administration would not want y'all talking about to bring light to the things that they are doing or are not doing. And so why not let these little things bubble up so people can eventually be like, oh, well, we had to step away from that organization because it looks like it was just too much corruption going on. So we can no longer support that. And then bam, they just disappear. I don't know. Could happen. Just a thought. Or, we'll see it start to flare up again in like a couple of months to kind of like the 2-year mark or whatever. We'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. But, you know, Whew, the propaganda, the using, it just all be so real. Thank you, Yogi Fish. Yogi Fish said, "Bless up, Rhonda." Thank you so much for the super chat. But hey, Akeem. Hey to everybody that's coming into the room now. But I cannot continue to sit back and watch people be used, watch people be emotionalized. And it's like, what's not clicking to not allow you to see that they have corporatized this movement to just, and I do think that some people that may not be either super informed, may not watch the news that much, may not really like be into what's going on, and they kind of genuinely see the things that they see, and they like, oh, this is something that I could get behind, and you don't even know like the foundation and the inner workings of a lot of the things that's just not adding up and making this organization look more and more suspect. So, Robert said using emotional manipulation to control and divide us, the ultimate goal is money, control, and money. Exactly. Exactly. Like, all just think about all of the corporations that made so much money 2020 just for posting like a black square. Y'all remember that it was like supposed to be like a unity thing, I guess. Coming out with these statements, you would go on like a fashion website and it'd be like, "We stand with you." Uh, okay. I'm like, and it was driving people to buy. And if you've studied, looked at, researched anything about marketing, the golden calf is like making an emotional connection with your viewers or your supporters. Once you can do that, like, companies hire entire teams to sit there and try to come up with ways to emotionally connect with the viewers, from commercials we see to all type of branding. And once they can do that, like, if they can make you smile, if they can make you sometimes sad, if they can make you feel empowered or good, or make some type of like childhood connection for you, it's like they know people buy off the shelf, they'll support whatever they have going. And so I don't believe for one second that Black Lives Matter has been any different in that regard. No different in that regard. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But all right, y'all, let's keep moving. So let's get into a little bit of, we're gonna talk about some of these states reopening, and then we're just gonna move right into the Andrew Cuomo thing. So I know you guys have heard about this because this has been trending on Twitter. If you don't have Twitter, like, you're missing out. Twitter is like a different world. It's totally different from Instagram. It's totally, of course, different from Facebook. I do not use Facebook, haven't used Facebook, and I don't know how long. Um, and with Twitter, you get your news the fastest. It's very, no offense to people out there if you're not on Twitter, but I'm just saying, Twitter is like going to challenge you because you have so many different people, and it's more interactive, and it's more like thought provoking and idea based. So if you like exploring different topics, or knowing other people's thoughts, or knowing like what's going on in the world and stuff like that, Twitter is where that happens. Twitter is the place to be for all that stuff. So anyway, if you're not following me on Twitter, make sure you follow me over there. I am RhondaMary. But anyway, So, Texas and Mississippi to lift mask mandates and roll back COVID restrictions. The governors of Texas and Mississippi both announced on Tuesday that they will be lifting their states' mask mandates and rolling back many of their COVID-19 health mandates just one day after the CDC warned against complacency in the face of emerging coronavirus variants. It is now time to open Texas 100%. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said Tuesday afternoon at this Mexican restaurant. COVID has not suddenly disappeared, he said, but state mandates are no longer needed. Shortly after his announcement, Governor Tate Reeves announced that he would end Mississippi's statewide mask mandate effective Wednesday of this week. Our hospitalizations and case numbers have plummeted, and the vaccine is being rapidly distributed. On Monday, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky strongly cautioned against the very rollbacks that they were implementing. I am really worried about reports that more states are rolling back the exact public health measures we have recommended to protect people. This goes on and on and on about that. So, as y'all know, you know, Mississippi girl. And at first, I was like, okay. When I saw Texas, I was like, go Texas. Okay, Texas. And then bam, information about Mississippi comes out. And so, y'all know that I have been doing breakdowns of the coronavirus data along with things that have worked and have not worked. I've covered that stuff all freaking 2020. Even when some of those things weren't popular to do so and say so, particularly about how the ventilators weren't working and hydroxychloroquine does. And just to come full circle and for this information to now be more official, now that the mainstream media finally decided that they wanted to pick these stories up and kind of retract, but quietly, but make sure they have it on record. But they're not going to spend all of their time every single day on camera telling you that the ventilators were killing your grandma right after we saw Cuomo and Blasio, but particularly Cuomo on CNN every single day at the beginning begging for ventilators, right? So the retraction never goes as far as the original story. But based on everything I saw, based on the data, even very early on, we knew that this virus was in fact only had a mortality rate of maybe 1%. And that's kind of on the generous side, 1% and lower. And so, based on everything that I saw during 2020, y'all know early on, this was probably in July when I decided personally that the very strict mandates did not make sense and that I found them to be, just not beneficial in many, many regards. And so this is finally happening, I think is good. I don't have any complaints about this. We've seen what's happened in Florida. If you look at the actual numbers, the actual data, even with all of the very strict restrictions, I don't know if you can say that. Can you say strict restrictions? I don't think that's kind of like a double negative, not double negative. You know what I mean? But even with all the restrictions in California, looking at the data right beside Florida, you still have, and Florida is just wide open. Florida is like Florida is like a strip club on a Saturday night, okay? But when you look at the actual numbers. I'm not talking about some freaking news commentator getting on there and playing with y'all from their script about, how unfortunately some random person passed from this. Yes, people are going to pass from this virus. Yes, it's going to affect people, but we're literally like days away from the anniversary of 2 weeks to slow the spread. 2 weeks to slow the spread. Somehow that went from 2 weeks to slow the spread to we can't let nobody ever get this. No, first it went from 2 weeks to slow the spread to we just have to get the numbers down so we don't overwhelm the hospitals till we can't never, ever, ever let nobody go out their house and get COVID again. How does that make sense with people? How is that okay with people? How can you sit here and watch the government lie? And, maybe lie is a harsh word because early on, even that first 2 weeks, I was in the house. I was sitting down. I had on my mask. I wasn't going nowhere. And like after 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, I was like, y'all, something's not right. Something's not adding up. I remember even that early in the game telling my friends, and they like, you. That's how my friends do me, y'all. You just hard headed. You just don't want to listen. You just think you got to get up and go. Blase, blase. This was probably by this time, this was like May, right? And I was still kind of just looking at the data, looking at everything that's going on. By July, I feel pretty confirmed in my convictions that, yeah, like we've been lied to about a lot of stuff. This is not adding up. This is absolutely not going to affect my generation, younger people, as it would the older generation. I told y'all tons of times how I tucked my grandmother away. I wanted to make sure she was, nice and safe while I was out still, making my money, living my life, not missing a whole year of my life. And so we did just that. And even as, my aunt and uncle got the coronavirus, and my uncle was to the point of we were worried, like real deal, like, it was to the point where I didn't know if they were going to end up trying to move him towards a ventilator. And I was texting my aunt, like, do not let them put him on a ventilator. And thank God that my aunt and uncle's doctor weren't like social justice warrior or doctor/activist, because honestly, who knows, my uncle may not even be here today, but because of HCQ took it, and I think it was maybe like a day later, it was like maybe two, if that. But I don't think it was no longer than 2 days. He was, getting back to being better and stuff like that. So, yeah, you have people that are still going to wear their mask. I think that's freedom of choice. And there you have it. And I think people that's not in Mississippi, not in Texas, that have had something to say, should mind their business. Bruce said, bet if the COVID cases continue to flatline, the critics will credit the vaccine. But if the numbers increase, they'll blame Texas reopening too soon. That is such a good point. And also, but why aren't they saying anything about the numbers in Florida? There's been no significant increase in the numbers in Florida. It has not. When we look at the actual data, actual numbers, actual statistics, I know some people don't like that. I've even heard that math is racist. Yeah, somebody did a news segment on that once, how math is racist. But when we actually look at the statistics, we don't see this wild increase going on in Florida. So, And then also another thing we have to consider is even either way it goes, right? Is the media really going to be forthcoming and objective and non-biased in their reporting? So this is actually an example of the states working how they're supposed to work. um this is when states' rights kicked in, and I highly doubt the people in Texas want Texas being ran like California, because if that was the case, you wouldn't see the droves of people leaving California for Texas. Okay, and that brings me, let's see what Aaron said. Thank you, Bruce. Aaron said, I lived in Dallas for 15 years and still have family in Texas. In fact, I was just there last year. I have so many family members in Texas and so many classmates in Texas, and they love Texas. They love Texas. Like I think practically all of my family members that have moved mostly live in Texas. All of my cousins and stuff live in Texas, are starting families in Texas, starting their lives, buying homes in Texas. Love it in Texas. Thank you, Aaron. Uh, but I was saying, so the crazy part about it is this leads me to thank you, Ronald. Ronald Goodman just sent a not a super chat, a cash app for the live stream. Thank you so much. So this is the funny part about this, y'all. These people have no self awareness to the point where it's like, are y'all walking zombies? Are you walking zombies? So, this is the Associated Press. They come out with this tweet today. Texas is lifting its mask mandate, making it the largest state to end an order intended to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So it just goes on to talk about this. Gavin Newsom, absolutely reckless. Dude, you literally have a recall right now for the specific fact of how you handle COVID lockdowns. Your constituents felt like your lockdowns were too restrictive, too long, too much lockdown. You're literally under recall by your own citizens, and you have the nerve to worry about what's going on in Texas. Not only that, California has become such a freaking uh y'all, California has become so terrible that if you look at the amounts of people breaking their neck, California, I think I said California, but I'm not sure, breaking their neck to leave California to get to Texas. People like Elon Musk, people like um oh my goodness, y'all, like the biggest YouTuber, Spotify. His name is on the top of my head. I can't even remember right now. Oh my god. Joe Rogan. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. I need to do more like crossword puzzles and like eat blueberries. And this is actually one that I used to always say, like, if I was a teacher, well, I like history, but I'm just not really good at remembering like dates and people's names and stuff like that. I'm really good with concepts, but like the details and the ins and outs. Mm-mm. But anyway, so you have people like Joe Rogan moving to Texas. You have people like Elon Musk looking at Texas, moving to Texas. You have people that are projecting Florida and Texas to be the next California and New York. And Gavin Newsom is so unaware, no self awareness. How do you even open up your mouth to speak on what Texas got going on? I don't hear, y'all may, but I don't hear a lot of people from Texas talking about their leaving to go to California. And even if we're just looking at the demographics of California, California is supposed to be this sunshine state and so inclusive and so loving and so progressive. But when you look at the state and look at the data, and I've done this too before um, in previous shows, we've talked about how the middle class is basically being decimated in California. You have so many people that can't afford to move there, which is leaving the very, very rich and the very, very poor. And what happens is, as they start to ask for more and more taxes, some of these rich people are like, nah, we out. We good. And so that's how you end up with the Joe Rogans moving to Texas. How you end up with these rich people moving other places. And this is why I try to get people, particularly people like my generation, that I just feel like sometimes we're not really fully seeing the entire picture and fully seeing ahead. We're not thinking about these things in a holistic way. But even this California is the perfect model to look at for this idea that just taxing people is going to fix everything. Just give people health care, put extra tax on a soda, let all the illegal immigrants come in and, just we'll teach all the children in the public schools. And, like, these things sound good. We'll make high-speed rails that we won't finish and we'll put millions of dollars towards. We're going to stop people that can already barely afford to live here. We're only going to give them 10 more years to have a car that uses gasoline. We're going to force them into having these solar panels for their home. We're going to force them into having these solar or electric cars. It's like, it sounds good, but when you start looking at what makes people move for money. Every time, and my cousins, when I talk about my cousins in Texas, they're like in my demographic, right? My generation. So when I talk to them, and it's like, you know what? Why you move to Texas? Why you like Texas so much? It's like, it's so much opportunity out here. There are things to do out here. It's money to get out here. It's easy to get a job out here. The jobs pay well out here. You can get a nice home for a decent a wage, making a decent wage out here. It's not like, oh, well, hashtag whatever. Like, that's not why people are actually moving. That's not what's being reflected in the numbers and the way people. Twitter is not a reflection of real life. It's not. And even if we're talking about even the race aspect of it, right? You always see somebody getting beat up on camera by the police in places like California. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen other places. I'm not saying it. But it's like a lot of these things are exacerbated. I see people on Twitter talking about, you have like the Hispanic gangs and the black gangs, or you have, this, and then one street over is this different group of people, and it's this conflict. Even when we look at New York, right, and we see some of these issues being just exacerbated, and people just fighting, and all of these issues that are happening in these bigger cities, when you have all these people up under each other and money issues are exacerbated. When money issues are being exacerbated and you see a larger gap between your very, very rich and your very, very poor, like in your Californias and in your New Yorks, that's going to exacerbate other issues. That just makes sense. So I think these are things that people have to look at, and whether people want to believe it or not, COVID has helped highlight some of those issues. I think over the next couple of months to years, you're going to see, and you've already been seeing, a great exodus out of California. And just imagine if these type of policies were to go nationwide. Those are, I mean, those are things that we have to think about. And how do we really, you know, decide where we want to live, the type of moves we make and things like this. It's usually based on income, money, finances. And so people want to go, especially, middle class people, that is like, you ain't rich, but you too rich to get the benefits that they getting. You know what I mean? Uh and so, especially when it comes to middle class people, or people trying to get their foot in their career, or people trying to start a family, or do something with their lives, they want to be somewhere where they feel like they can plant their feet, get something accomplished, not be taxed to death, and be able to make of some type of way, or some type of living for their family. And this is a across the board type thing. So I'm like, really, Gavin Newsom? The gall. Like, and then you got people in the comments talking about, can we ban travel from Texas to California? Texans probably want to ban travel from California to Texas. So don't get ahead of yourself. Do not get too ahead of yourself. You've had recently so many people visiting and going to Florida. Like, I've been thinking about going to Florida just to hang out, just to get some sun, just to feel like you live in a real world, a normal world again. And then another thing about Mississippi, Texas, and even places that I've traveled, especially here recently, it's already kind of been like, as far as like mass mandates, enforcements, where you really just see those are strictest is particularly like your Walmarts, your like big box stores. But small businesses, local owned businesses, like, you have restaurants and stuff like that, that just haven't, from what I've seen, just hasn't been as like strict as some of these other places. Um, Robert is making some really good points. Hold on, because I can't find it now. Robert said California is fashioning itself to become a utopia for the upper class and elite, with zero middle class and only a permanent under lower class as help in labor, a caste system with no way out. How do I relate that to people? How do I help them see? like, how do I explain it in a way, particularly to younger people, particularly to people that are in this social media frenzy? Like, so let's compare it to the Andrew Cuomo thing, because we're going to talk about him tonight, right? You have Andrew Cuomo, who the media made a starlet out of him. They made a hero out of him, gave him an Emmy Award, propped him up, putting him on all these daytime shows. He's here, he's there, he's doing this, he's doing that. Like, how do I explain to people or get people to see on the back end, this man was killing people with his policies? Some of the issues, like, it's hard for people to even practically live in New York. Like, how it's like, what's missing that's not connecting for people? And I really have to hone down on making these things palatable and easily understandable for younger generations. And I don't know what's a better example of that than California and Texas, when I know so many people, young people personally, that like, y'all don't know how many stories I've heard. This is no stretch. How many stories I've heard of people saying they just got up and moved to Dallas, like barely had $300, $500, maybe $1,000 to their name, and was just like, yeah, I'm ready to start something new, and would pack up their car and just go, and are now stationed, living, really nice, decent lives. And so these are things that I've seen, having these conversations with people, seeing these things from a personal level, seeing people be able to move up in their career or their field, or build these lives in their homes. And it's like, now can you remember that and not try to go now get on social media and pretend it's something different, or be jaded by things that don't translate to real life? Um, so, but we'll see. But I do think we're gonna pay attention, and I do think over the next couple of years, we are gonna see this flip of more people moving to Texas, moving to Florida. They'll be able to do more things, more freedom, less taxes. And then, well, I was gonna say better weather, not necessarily compared to California, definitely compared to New York, you know. Um, but but we're gonna keep see what goes on. We'll keep watching these COVID numbers as it relates to the economy, as it relates to what's gonna happen once, and either I've been the wrong places, or I didn't even know that Mississippi wasn't 100% open. But maybe that's because I just don't be caring anyway, and I just be going and doing what I want to do. Like, if I'm gonna go do something, I'm just gonna do it. I remember this had to be like in May or maybe early June, and people were still on these lockdowns tough. And I was like, man, screw that, man. I was like, I just want to go eat out. I was like, I don't care where I go. I just want to go eat out. I just want to go sit somewhere. So I ended up going to IHOP. I ended up going to IHOP, and I sat in there, I ate, and I was just so happy. I was so thankful that somebody had the freaking balls to be open and letting people eat inside. And I ended up leaving my waitress like a freaking like $50 tip or something, because I was just at IHOP, because I was just so happy to be out. And I'm like, I know you need the money too, because y'all are barely working right now, barely getting tips and stuff like this. And I just, it was a few other people in the restaurant, but it wasn't really like bumping like that. But now I think people are slowly getting back in the swing of things. And it's like, you know, but Sade said, we are a year in. People are tired of being in hibernation and living in fear. Man, I saw somebody tweet the other day. She said something like she just left her house, just really left her house like for the first time. I think she said like last week or something like that. And I'm thinking like, I don't even know. I mean, just think about all the mental issues that we're going to have to look at and examine coming forward too. I saw these videos recently. I don't know if y'all seen them, but it's where the kids are playing the instruments. It's like a band at a school and they're in these like pods. And I'm like, I would just not go to school. I would just not go to school. And even for college students, I remember early on, this was probably back like in August, where some college students were kind of like mad because they felt like the things with the universities and colleges weren't being handled correctly, or they were just trying to decide what they were still going to do. And I'm like, if I were you, I wouldn't even go to college right now. Like, why would you go? You're probably going to pay the same amount previous years, previous people have paid for less interaction, probably more online classes, more, less access, a lesser experience. And you also have to think about the economy that we're basically moving into, right? Like, is it something that would you just want to go and like waste this money just because? Or why not just, my thoughts were, why not just sit out a year, see how things go, maybe work if you can, whatever. But it's like, why pay? First of all, we already know the college debt burden that it is on a lot of people. We know the reflections of that on this current generation, how a lot of people are dealing with debt from college and things like that. And so it's like, why not just sit the year out, since you would pretty much halfway be sitting out? You would be at home anyway, and use that time to see what's going to happen, decide what you want to do, wait till you can actually access the things that you're going to be paying that very, very high price tag college uh, uh, price tag for, you know. So Aaron said, here in LA, I'm glad to see that some churches have pushed back on Gavin Newsom's ridiculous mandate. You have churches, business owners, how people are even surviving, man. It's like, the big companies have the room to fall back on, first of all, for the hit they're going to take, like the Walmarts, the Targets. They have the cushion room. Some of them were still allowed to be open. And then the lower income don't typically own businesses. These are people that would be working, be receiving benefits during the time that they're not working. And so you have this whole group of small business owners, man, that is angering. When you really think about it, people that have lost their livelihood, everything they put so much time and effort in over things that could have been resolved. Like I said this summer, if the social distancing works, if the mask works, let people social distance, let people wear their mask, and let people get back to work. All right, Araka said, Rhonda, I attended a church in Texas 2 times recently where the 500 plus members have not worn masks or stayed physically separated for 8 months without anyone's dying or getting sick. Thank you, Miss Walker, for the super chat. Thank you so much. I've been hearing people, I just talked to this guy the other day, and he was telling me that his grandmother, who's in her 90s, got coronavirus, talked about how she did all, just the regular remedies to get over it. And, she got over it well. But he said he remembered when she first got it, it was like, oh no, like this the big one, like not grandma, you know. And she got over it fine. And unfortunately, like I said, and I have to continue to say, because if you don't put in this caveat, people will try to pretend like you haven't or you don't believe so. But yes, people have absolutely passed from the coronavirus. You have people that have dealt with it, taking a harder side of it, taking a hit from it. However, when we go back to look at those numbers, when we look at these numbers again, y'all, first of all, when we look at this from 10 years from now, I think a lot of us are going to laugh at ourselves and be like, what the heck? Way more of this corruption is going to come out, that's coming out now. And some of these things we're going to be like, yeah, the reaction was just overblown. And should we have ruined so many people's livelihood for a number? Remember, 1% or less mortality rate, a number that resembles a typical mortality rate for a virus. Also, dealing with a government that went from 2 weeks to slow to spread to, oh, well, we just want to make sure we don't overwhelm our hospitals, to y'all just stay locked down until, well, we don't know, until we come up with something else we can tell y'all to make you think that you should still be locked down a year later. And I have to mention this, but I used to, before I was researching and paying attention and started diving into these things for myself, I really didn't understand why people would think, oh, if you just give us your over 10 capacity magazine, I'm talking about firearms for people that don't know. If you just give us your bump stock, if you just do this little bit of information, if you just get this little bit of information to the feds, that's all we want from you. But now I understand why people be like, heck no. Heck no. We are not conceding even a little bit on our gun rights. And now I finally, between COVID and the whole 2 week to slow the spread, to now we're coming to a year anniversary, between that and also with the LGBT, how we started off years and years ago, it was like, oh, we just want to love who we love. That's all. We just want to love who we love. We ain't going, we ain't. And now it's like, a man is a woman is a man. No difference. Let a man play sports with the child, girl, and it's all the same. Those two issues alone, and to see the narrative shift so quickly, to see the social engineering, the social programming to push people from one narrative to another, to see our government lie and add, no, 2 more weeks. Oh, just 2 more weeks. Oh, just another 15 days. Oh, just another 3 months. Oh, just another month or so. And so we're almost to a year. How can I not believe that if we don't say, okay, we'll just give you this bump stock, or we'll just give you this type of firearm, before you know it, it'll be like, y'all don't need them things at all. just pass them all over to us. We know we told you that 2 years ago, 5 years ago, but hey, that's what we said then, not what we saying now. So, and by then it's too late. It's too late. It's too late. Once you have conceded, once you have given up your rights, I used to think this stuff was so cliche. Once you giving up your rights, you're not gonna get them back. You know what I mean? But look at the people who said, all right, I'll close my business 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. I'm down for the people. I care about people. And now you have people who haven't been able to open up their businesses, if at all, or to a decent capacity that allows them to survive. Some businesses going into a year, y'all. A year. How can these people be trusted? So please don't be mad at people when they say the government can't be trusted. Please don't be mad at people when they say, yeah, I don't want to give up my guns. I don't want to do any of it. Look how they lie. Look how they steadily push or move the goalpost on every single aspect. And it's just so unfortunate, man. It's just so unfortunate. I hate to see some of the business owners that have been impacted and gone through this. I hate to see children or young people that's been locked and tucked away and missed a whole year of their life with beautiful just sun and flowers and super low airplane ticket rates. And you know I mean, but anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent. I think we supposed to be talking about Andrew Cuomo. All right, we were kind of going into him and we talked about New York a little bit, but I just went off on this tangent because, you know, we it's to a point where we have to constantly be reminded to people have to be able to separate their real actual life, what's happening in your actual life, to versus what you see on TV, what's happening in your actual life versus what you're seeing on social media. People trying to conflate and merge the two, you're going to be confused, depressed, and you're going to be walked off a bridge while these politicians and these corporations continue to make the most of these situations. So let's talk about Andrew Cuomo real quick. Hey, Dominique. Okay, so this is according to MSN.com. Andrew Cuomo hasn't taken press questions for 8 days in wake of sexual harassment allegations. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, once a daily presence amid the coronavirus pandemic, has been staying out of the public eye in the wake of sexual harassment allegations made against him. Cuomo's briefings became a daily fixture. Oh, y'all remember, and I'm gonna rub it in your face if you don't. Cuomo's briefings became a daily fixture during the first few months of the pandemic as he held 110 consecutive meetings with the press between March and June of last year. But the governor hasn't taken questions from the press since February 22nd and hasn't made any public appearances since February 25th, as reported by the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. His absence was particularly notable on Monday, which was the 1 year anniversary of New York's first confirmed case of the virus. Y'all done made him go hide in his house now. Cuomo's lack of public appearances comes after 3 women have accused him of inappropriate behavior and sexual harassment. Lindsay Bowling, a former aide, was the first to make public allegations, saying he basically tried to kiss her. Blah 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 blah. Days later, Charlotte Bennett came out. She was a former aide. She told the New York Times that the governor made her uncomfortable with questions about her sex life and asked whether she would consider dating an older man. And then Anna Roach also told the Times about alleged unwanted advances. She said at a wedding in September 2019, where he put his hands on her exposed lower back. When she removed it with her hand, uh, she allegedly uh, she alleged the governor said she seemed aggressive, then put his hands on her cheeks. A photo of the alleged incident was included in the newspaper story. So y'all kind of hear their inappropriate comments, inappropriate gestures. The crazy the crazy part about this is, as inappropriate as it was, I tweeted the other day, it's crazy. We got a president that's sitting in the White House that has groped children right on camera, but that's just another story for another day. However, so you basically have these inappropriate things that have gone on. This is not the first, nor will it be the last time that we've had a politician, particularly it's usually male politicians that will have these allegations uh, against them, right? We've seen this with Trump. We've seen this with Joe Biden. We've now seen this politicians with allegations against us. Now we're seeing this with Cuomo. Is a long list of others. Andrew Cuomo will not be the first nor the last. What I do think, a couple of things I think are particularly interesting, is how things always come full circle. During the press releases that Cuomo was making every day, I saw young ladies in the comments of the urban blog sites calling this man Zaddy. Everyone was hailing him as a hero. So much so that he was everywhere, talking to everyone, wrote a book, and was nominated for an Emmy. All of this was going on while the media, that are supposed to be investigative journalists, were completely ignoring not only the things that were going on about the ventilators, but were also going on with the nursing homes. Long tongue son knew exactly where I was talking about. uh, but the entire time, these investigative journalists were ignoring these unpleasant, what we now know to be facts, but at the time were definitely worthy of being investigated, being talked about, of being looked into more deeply. You got a little just small YouTuber like me that comes across something interesting, and I'm like, I gotta tell people about this because nobody's talking about this, and I want to talk about the stuff that people are not talking about, because I don't want to talk about the stuff that people, everybody and their mama, the same humdrum narrative that the mainstream media is trying to beat in our head, instead of telling us the real of what's actually going on. And so some of us had already been looking at the Cuomo thing, called him out with the ventilators. You went from the press conference every single day to talking about, we need ventilators, we're not getting ventilators, blah, blah, blah. And then the press conferences quietly stopped talking about the ventilators, and you kept doing the press conferences, but you were talking about, you went on to talking about overwhelming hospitals. Now the hospitals are overwhelmed. So you just kind of quietly changed the narrative. You never really told people that the ventilators were killing people, and you were the ones in the press conferences, particularly on national TV, calling for them every day, and then go on to find out that you were in fact lying about nursing homes. And then, of course, just out of nowhere, all of a sudden, after the media made this complete hero out of you. Turns out that you were allegedly a predator the entire time. And so while the media was trying to paint this picture of good guy, bad guy, sometimes the people they paint as the good guy is in fact the not so good guy. And oh, don't even get me started on the brother, Chris Cuomo, and their cute little press conferences because based on their numbers and their information, COVID is supposed to be the most deadliest uh, uh, thing in modern history. And oh my God, hide your kids, hide your wife. But somehow the Cuomo brothers can get on there and every night laugh it up about mom's cooking. Once again, trying to plant this narrative in the viewer's head of this person is so lovable, this person has it going on, this person is so great. We should never idolize politicians ever. I don't care who they are. I keep that consistent opinion. They work on our behalf and have an obligation to the people. And this is what happens when you idolize people. People are human and people fail. Respect, sure. Trust, maybe a little bit. Idolize, no. And so, of course, Chris Cuomo, and I think I see somebody put in the comments that he's maybe talking about it tonight. But I think this was last night. He talks about, oh, it's a conflict of interest. I can't talk about it. I bet you can't. I bet you can't talk about it. But if investigative journalists would do what I would like to believe they're actually supposed to do. But hey, my definition of journalism may be wrong. I don't know. But if they were actually doing what they're supposed to do, I don't see why you couldn't just report. This is the funny part. And this just proves. Thank you so much, Andre. Andre Thomas just cash out me $50. Thank you so much. But this proves the real state of our mainstream news media and journalism. Because if you were actually an honest person, an objective person, you could just simply report the information that's been presented. You don't have to put your spin on it. You don't have to take up for your brother, nor do you have to condemn him if you are actually doing what journalists are supposed to do. But Chris Cuomo knows that that's not what they do. And if he was to, in fact, just present the information as it's being reported, it would throw the viewers so much because the viewers are so used to activist journalism throwing their entire belief system and their entire spin and their entire favoritism and their entire bias into their news segment instead of just reporting the facts. And that's the real reason. That's the real reason why he couldn't speak about it. Because if you're just literally reporting the information as it comes, and you don't have anything to add, and you're not trying to deny anything that your brother did, what's the problem? It's just another news day, right? You don't have to inject your personal bias into it. But that's what, you know, our journalism has become. Black introvert said is bro code. I mean, hey, you can't even mention. You can't. Hey, there's some allegations against. There are some allegations against Cuomo that have been reported. Lady 1 said this. Lady 2 said this. Lady 3 said this. And at this time, he has not spoken. We haven't heard from him in the last 8 days. As we get more information about the story, we'll tell you more. I mean, but that's too much to ask. Way too much to ask. So a really good question is that a really good question to ask is what has brought this on? What has brought this about? What seems appears to be suddenly. Maybe the people in New York know something that we don't know. Maybe this has been going on for a while and it's just now coming out. But why? Coincidence? Maybe, to go ahead and get him out of office so they don't have to maybe deal with the other things that have been going on as far as like with the COVID and the lockdowns in the nursing homes. Maybe also a possibility. I see Andrew Yang popping out a lot, being on social media, being here, being there, talking about New York, stepped up, had something to say about the allegations against Cuomo. His face is out there a lot now. And remember, I told y'all to kind of keep an eye when you're starting to notice people popping up, having more viral moments, doing more news segments and press conferences, having more stories and stuff like that. So, is this something deeper or just a coincidence? I don't know, but I do find it completely interesting that these two things are happening simultaneously. And when you look at the impact of them together, it takes a blow to his character in a more holistic way, right? Because if people weren't mad at you about the COVID thing, sexual allegations are definitely going to take a different spin. And originally, when these stories started coming out, I didn't really foresee the media picking them up and really running with them. I'm like, they're probably just going to they're going to sweep this under the rug. I don't think people are going to really mention it, talk about it. But by the time the second and the third uh, young ladies with allegations came out, it was like, what are you going to do? That's what I think too. Mel said New York is in a power shift right now. Mm, Longtime son said if they get him out of office over sexual harassment, it prevents him from going to jail for manslaughter and people suing the state. Can't that can't they still sue after he leaves though? If it's a suit against the state of New York, not as much just towards him. But I do see maybe he might be able to avoid some things on his own end. But that's interesting. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, but there's definitely a fall from grace that's happening. There's been a complete 180 and it's been swift. That's the crazy part about it. Like you just went from being like this freaking superhero to now, especially with Trump gone, the media almost needs a public enemy number one. They need somebody for ratings or they need something. You know what I mean? And Black Lives Matter is not really popping off right now at this very second. So, and we know the things that make people click and watch and view and stuff like that. So, but we'll see. Mel said this is about money, power, and politics. The ladies are just pawns, and yes, they can sue him personally depending on what it is. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested. He's disappeared for at least 8 days at this point, and I'm very interested to see how he's gonna handle this. Is he just gonna step down, resign? What will he have to say for himself? I think that's gonna be the more interesting part. Originally, when he spoke about 8 days ago, he said, "Yeah, I may have said some things that people might have took inappropriately, but whatever." But I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was before the third accusation came out. Um, so you know, but we'll see. So we're going to keep our eye on Cuomo. We're going to keep our eye on the numbers, right? Once Texas, particularly Texas, because Texas is kind of like a big deal. People are always like Florida, Texas, New York, California. We're kind of always looking and talking about these states as it regards to like policy and economics and stuff like that. And so we'll kind of keep an eye on the COVID numbers coming out of Texas. I'll let y'all know maybe 2 weeks. Do we see an increase? Do we see a decrease? Do we see an inflation of people going into the hospitals, or what's going on with that? And we'll be interested to see what Cuomo has to say for himself. But all right, y'all. Thank y'all for rocking with me every Tuesday. Thank y'all so much to everyone that super chatted. Thank you to everyone that sent a cash app. Thank you to my patrons. Thank y'all so much for making this Hey Y'all Tuesday possible. A special thank you to my VIP patrons, Ray and Daniel. And what Black Introvert said? He said, "What's up with the vaccine?" So, from what I read with the vaccines today, to my understanding, is that Joe Biden came out and made a statement today saying they're expecting that everyone that wants the vaccine will be able to officially get them by May. The vaccination numbers are ramping up, so you have tons and tons of people being vaccinated now. I also believe that helped solidify the governor of both Mississippi and Texas to decide to go ahead and start reopening those states and getting those businesses to full capacity, because we are getting those vaccinations rolled out and things like that. I may do some content at a different time about uh the numbers and the percentages of how the vaccines are working and stuff like that. But those are some of the things that we just know so far. But all right, y'all. So happy Tuesday. Thank y'all for rocking with me. I appreciate y'all so much. And all right, y'all have a good night. Bye.